Oh, I'm sorry. Did I break your concentration?
Somewhere between science and superstition.
We have such sights to show you.
Strange Eons. Welcome to Strange Eons Radio. That's Eric over there.
Hello.
That's Vanessa over there.
Hello.
I'm Kelly. Hey, you guys. We're doing another night recording, but what the fuck? It is so hot in here.
It's so hot. And like they say it's going to be in the 90s.
I hate it.
I guess we're lucky because Eric was telling me that California is like 120 or something.
Yeah.
Dina's cousin had a like 110 or 115 in their backyard, and that county they live in hit 100. Someplace hit 120, and then they had power outages.
Oh my god!
Yeah, I mean, I don't even know.
I just roll in a bucket of ice and be like, "Don't come for me."
Well, as long as you've got something that's keeping your freezer cold enough to make ice.
Yeah.
Well, we had that happened one time with here a couple of years ago. It got to like 93 or 94, and nothing in Seattle is air conditioning anyways, except for like theaters and businesses.
Right.
But all the fans turn off. And within minutes, it's like, oh my God, it's sweltering. We got out, we had some of those like things you put into coolers to keep them cool, like put on the back of our necks, and within minutes, they're warm. Like, this sucks.
I remember last summer I spent a huge chunk of it in Georgia, and I go running as early as I could bother waking up, which was usually like 9:30 or 10, the earliest I could get myself outside. But even by then, it's like hitting 90. So I'd go running for like 3 to 6 miles in this 90-degree heat. I come back so hot. I would just go and stand in front of the freezer and just like touch things in the freezer and just like gulp like water like crazy. It's so just to bring your temperature down so hard.
9:30 or 10 o'clock is the earliest you can drag yourself out of bed.
It really is.
Wow.
I know. This is what's being a freelancer has done to me. No one needs me earlier than that. Everybody's starting their day. Like even when I'm working for a company, they start at 9, but nobody needs a meeting until at least 9:30.
Yeah.
So.
Well, and before we get called a bunch of weenies for hating 90 degrees, 90 degrees in Seattle is worse than 110 degrees in Arizona.
Yeah.
It's a gross, wet, swampy heat.
And we don't have air conditioning. We don't have homes that are set up to cool down.
Right.
So we're just not equipped for it.
I mean, I did high school in a small town in Idaho, and it would hit 105, 110 regularly. Never really bothered me there because, you walk air-conditioned car, walk into the house, air-conditioned, walk into the mall, whatever, everything. Yeah. So, but then moving up here, it's 15, 20 degrees cooler. I'm going, it's so hot here.
You just have to sit in it. You just sit in it.
You guys, is anybody still watching Lovecraft Country?
I have not yet returned to it. Have you caught up?
I am caught up. Eric, are you caught up?
I've still only watched the first one.
Oh, okay. Well,
so I'm not worried about it. At this point, I'll probably go back and watch it at some point, but Dean has already said, I'm not interested.
God, I'm so bummed. I did like the book quite a bit, and I liked that first episode, and I found it to be very hit or miss. I am now at episode 4, and I liked episode 3 better than 2.
Okay.
And then I didn't like episode 4 again. So, I don't know.
Yeah, I am definitely looking forward to getting back to it, but I also have no hopes that I'll actually enjoy it.
Yeah. I mean, when you've got stuff like The Boys or when you've got, and HBO is putting out stuff like Watchmen and things like that, and then you get hit with something that's just good.
Right.
You're like, wait, what?
This is why network TV sucks so much, because like it's just fine. And it's like, but I could just rewatch like Game of Thrones, I could do something else.
Or what I'm in, I didn't have the schedule to watch, but I'll bring it up real quick. I'm on like episode 3 or 4 of The Dark. The one is that the right name? The one you're talking about, the German film, or Dark?
Yeah, I really want to see that.
Yeah, you should.
Yeah. Yes, that's what I've heard. Like, exactly. When it's just sitting out there waiting, these amazing shows.
And I did the same thing you're doing, not for the same reason. I had the weirdest reaction with subtitles. I watched Fulci for Fake, I think it's called, which is a documentary about Fulci, but it's an Italian-made documentary. I've never watched a subtitled documentary before. Holy shit, that's a lot of reading. Because, you know, in movies, you got pause times and down times, and of documentary, people are talking all the time.
Oh, sure.
So I started to watch The Dark very shortly after that. I was like, I don't want to watch subtitles. So it's a little off, you know, but
you're supposed to
it's
rise
not
above
bad.
it. You're supposed to be okay with all subtitles. You're a film fan.
I would say
You know?
95% of the time I almost never watch, like anime, I try to watch subtitle.
Yeah,
It's just-
totally same.
But,
Same.
but it works, and I'm used to it now, so it doesn't.
Yeah. And I think I mentioned that my TV is just far enough away from the couch, and Netflix doesn't allow you to change the subtitle size.
Right.
You know, Amazon does.
Oh, that's frustrating.
So I'm just sitting there squinting at it, which is why I finally just turned it to the dubbed.
Yeah. I that would definitely frustrate me quite a bit. My mom keeps accidentally turning subtitles on and then calling me like, the words are on again. Like closed captioning. I'm like, I don't know what you did to make this happen, but let me see if I can help you.
Love it when you accidentally turn on like the ones for blind people. So it's like,
Yes.
man walks into the room.
It's so good.
Like, all right.
Some of those are amazing. Like
Yes.
the way they describe like boy with fishing pole over, like when they're describing just the opening producer, production company credit bits. And you're like, huh, all right, I guess that's what is happening right now. Well, I got to check out something, which I'm curious if you guys have seen. So I saw the first 2 of 3 newly released episodes of Raised by Wolves.
Oh, you did?
I want to see.
I forgot about that.
Yeah, I forgot that was out.
I just checked it out last night. I really like it.
Damn.
Is that Prime?
Everybody get out. I
It
want to
is
go watch this
Amazon.
tonight.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, because like it's hard with Ridley Scott because you just don't.
He's hit or miss.
Especially with Alien.
When he hits, it's so good though, man.
Yeah, and this isn't part of like the Alien world as far as I'm aware, but just it's got a very similar sci-fi feel to it of this like highly detailed, highly thought out world, and you're kind of placed in the middle of it with various characters. And so with things like Covenant and God knows what else, it's like, oh God, this is going to be a garbage pile. But it's just good, deliberate, beautiful, crazy sci-fi. So
And you said it is on Prime.
I believe it's on. It's either Prime or no. Maybe
thought it
it's
was
HBO.
HBO Max.
Is that
You know
HBO?
what? It is
Oh, okay.
HBO.
Yeah.
I don't know. They all blend
So
together.
it's a
after
weekly
while.
release.
It is. So
kinda
the
one?
first 3, just like what they did with Boys, the first 3 are out immediately, and then after that, it's one at a time.
Yeah, I want to see that one.
Yes. You guys have to watch it so we can talk about it.
I'm trying to kick you guys out early so I can watch it tonight.
Well, luckily, that shouldn't be too hard.
That's our show, everybody.
Thank you. Gotta get the air-conditioned car. Well, I watched a trilogy as well.
What?
Yeah. Well, I guess not
Copycat.
as well. That was last week's episode.
What did you
uh,
check out?
It's Alive.
I don't know what this
The
is.
Larry
Boy.
Cohen trilogy.
Oh, boy. That's the law of diminishing returns on that franchise.
I'd say more of it as a dip. The first one's pretty good. It's really serious.
Yeah.
Holy shit. And even by Cohen standards, he's not a schlocky comedy kind of director, but he's got a lot of fun. Like the stuff is fun.
Yeah.
Hugh has humor. But It's Alive is pretty serious.
Yes.
The story of the trilogy is women give birth to a monster. Like slaughters everybody in the birthing room except for the mom. And then
The amazing poster art was the crib in the dark with like a creepy scaly hand coming out. And the tagline was something like, there's only one thing wrong with the Johnson's baby. It's alive.
That is good. That's
And
very good.
I think the second one might be my least favorite Larry Cohen film, period.
Yeah, it's bad.
Really was like, wow, there's nothing going on here. But the third one got a little fun and goofy.
Island of the Alive, right?
Where there's like 5 of them, and it's not Larry Cohen's not exactly what you'd call a master filmmaker to begin with, but he writes solid, entertaining movies. I think the third one is at least more entertaining. And it was probably helped by watching it within a day or two of watching that second one, which I really didn't like.
Yeah. So you're just like, your expectations are so low that, yeah.
And it's the only one that has Moriarty.
Right.
Is back in that. It was made in like the late 80s. So it was quite a bit.
Yeah, it was a big. Well, I think maybe that's why I was so disappointed, because I thought it was going. It was made in the late 80s, but it doesn't feel like a late 80s film.
No. I was real surprised actually when it was made. It's like, oh, was this one of the early ones with Moriarty? No, this is one of the later ones.
Yeah.
I'm definitely sold on seeing the first one.
Are you familiar with Larry Cohen?
I've seen the stuff, and I've seen Q.
Yeah, so yeah, definitely. Yeah, I think the first one's good. It's dark.
Yeah.
I was really surprised, actually.
Yeah, I like that one. I watched a new movie. Vanessa, I think that you complained about a film a couple months back called Scare Package.
Yes, I did.
So I didn't even bother to watch that. Actually, I did bother to watch like 20 minutes of it, and I was like, nope, she's right.
That's about how much I've seen of it, too. So,
I mean, it almost is a fun moment or two in it, and then it just keeps going.
And believe it or not, the guys behind that, or one of the main people behind that, have a feature out right now.
Oh, no.
Brand new, called The Pale Door.
Okay. That sounds familiar. Why does that sound familiar? Is it based off a property?
No. It is about a group of outlaws who end up basically taking over this whorehouse, it's Old West.
Oh, so it's a Western?
And turns out that all the women there are a coven of witches.
Oh.
And I thought, well, this actually sounds pretty good. Yeah. And I listen to a lot of horror podcasts where they interview people, and this guy keeps coming on. And I have to admit, he sounds like a prick and somebody I'd never want to sit next to at a party.
Oh, no.
But I thought, boy, they sure are giving him a lot of love. And so I gotta see this movie. And I watched it, and I was like, well, now he sounds like a prick who can't make a good movie to me.
Oh, so not good?
This was bad. This was outright bad. And he's been doing interviews all over with everybody just kissing his ass. I'm like, what does this guy have on you?
It's weird. Yeah, I don't know, because Joe Bob shows up partway in whatever Scare Package. And I'm like, how did you get him? What? What?
Write him a check.
Well,
I guess that's true. I'm sure, especially right before Shudder picked him up, I know he wasn't doing so hot. So
the segment he's in, I believe, is this guy's segment.
It's bad.
So
it's just like, it just doesn't, I don't know. It feels like tone deaf. It feels very tone deaf.
This one just looks so cheap. It looks like a 90s television show, and it's, the Old West, and they're in a big building that looks like it looks like it's a nice Western style home or something that was built in 2010. And all these cowboys are wearing, cowboy clothes, but they look like they just came off the rack. And, nobody looks like they have actually spent any time in their clothes. It's just one of those things. I was like, boy, this looks cheap.
Yeah.
Yeah, I hate that. It's actually a personal pet peeve of mine when you can tell that something just came off a rack. Like, I just saw a Liam Neeson drama, sad film where his wife gets cancer. And anyways, they go to bed at one point and like they put their heads down and the sheets are like not yet ironed out.
Just pulled out of the package, folded.
Yeah, totally. They're all folded and stuff with the lines. I'm like, no, you guys, no. I'm so unhappy about this situation. Like it just kills it for me every time. Or like clothes that aren't dirty, but they're out somewhere where they should be dirty. Just like
riding a horse in the woods.
Throw it on the ground for a second, pick it back up and put them on it. It's fine.
That's like happens a lot in cheap short films. Like one we saw years ago at Lovecraft, we were kind of harping on because it was a Western, I believe. But it was very obvious when the guy went into his house that it was an apartment.
Oh, right. Yeah.
And probably like an apartment with like double L buildings kind of apartment with a all white wall. And I was like, man, just throw something on the wall or something. Yeah. Hide that just a little bit, because the costumes and stuff were fine. But that was so glaringly like, no.
Yeah.
Oh, I hate that. Well, I'm glad you said something so I can avoid it.
Yeah, I took one for the team, you guys. So
Yeah,
Pale
no
Door
kidding.
is a hard pass.
Because that definitely would be the kind of premise I'd be like, yeah, cool, let's see it.
I thought, maybe we'll get a new From Dusk Till Dawn kind of story or
Right.
something like that. And
Wow.
it is not that
Oops.
bad at all.
Next question, you say, well, maybe this will be better than Pale Door, and then you'll enjoy it more. Any other?
No,
Anything
it's been unfortunately I saw so many Keanu Reeves movies last week. I saw 6 films, guys. 6. All starring Keanu Reeves. So just
Nothing wrong with that.
I got sapped out.
Well, okay, then I guess I got 2 more in the knocking off crap films I've never
Yeah.
seen category. Critters 3 and 4.
Oh no. Well, it's good to
I
know.
warned you.
Yep, you are not wrong. 3 is fine, but honestly, incredibly forgettable. I wrote no notes about it, and I have no idea what happened in it at the moment. Critters 4 was interesting. It's critters in space, because that's what you had to do in the late 80s at some point with a sequel. But
in
they
all,
obviously,
in all fairness, they come from space. So.
well, true. So there's a lot of space in that trilogy, or in that 4, I guess. I guess there's 5. I don't know if I'm going to bother with.
Yeah, I would pass on 5. There was also a web series too.
Ooh,
right.
web
Oh.
series.
But they ran out of money, kind of, with 4, because 3 and 4 were shot at the same time,
Yeah.
and they destroyed or had a problem with a couple of puppets. They only had like 2 or 3 critters left.
Oh
So
no.
it's like 30 or 40 minutes into the movie before the critters even show up.
Oh
And
no.
the storyline's all really, really serious, and it's very weird. And it's
I'd go as far as to say that 5 is better than 3 or 4.
Oh well,
But-
maybe I will check it out.
But I mean, that's a pretty low bar.
Pretty much trip on that bar.
Get that completist in me going. Oh well, maybe.
Are there only 5 aside from the web series?
There's
I believe
5.
there's
No,
5,
the 5th
yeah.
one was only like 2 years ago.
Yeah.
Oh shoot.
I think it had Dee Wallace in it even.
I believe so.
Wow.
So
Yeah.
so it's high quality viewing for me this last couple weeks or so.
Nice.
Those
Yeah.
5 films.
I do find that like low budget, more modern horror films I have far less patience for than low budget like 80s films.
Well, that's because low budget has come to mean a different thing.
It has. It means like I can do really bad CGI on a really high quality camera
Mhm.
with really like you can see the problems better.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Very true.
Well, all right. Have we bashed enough stuff? Should we take a little break and come back and talk Twilight Zone?
Because that's
Sounds good.
good.
That is good. We'll be right back.
Hollywood, California, the movie capital of the world. And when you want to hobnob with the stars, there's only one place to stay. The Hollywood Tower Hotel. Until that tragic night in 1939, when 5 people checked in, never to be seen again.
Welcome to the Hollywood Tower Hotel, where the elevator
I'll take you to 13.
shoots you straight up. And when the doors open, you're in for the elevator ride of your life. Enter a new dimension of fear.
Hollywood Tower Hotel.
The Twilight Zone Tower of Terror. A 13-story plot. Faster than gravity itself. Straight down through the historically haunted Hollywood Tower Hotel. The Twilight Zone Tower of Terror at the Disneyland Resort May 5th.
You can't miss it.
Drop in if you dare.
And we're back. You guys, this time I chose something kind of weird, and I wanted to just expand our topics a little bit. And so I chose Twilight Zone episodes. Didn't have to be your favorite Twilight Zone episode. Didn't have to be anything like that. But I think that there are enough episodes and enough versions of the Twilight Zone that you could probably pick something that a lot of people maybe don't know about.
Yeah. It's a pretty cool idea. I mean, I think I mentioned last week, like, it was a good opportunity to finally see some Twilight Zone episodes.
Right.
So I think I watched 9 to figure out why.
Wow. Nice.
Very cool. I ended up watching a bunch too. This was a nice chance for me. So since it's my pick,
That's right.
Yeah.
I'm going first.
Lead us in.
I have to do this a little differently than we do our other stuff because obviously I could find no budget or Rotten Tomatoes ratings or anything like that.
What? No Rotten Tomatoes.
But
Sleeping on the job.
I chose from the 1980s Twilight Zone, The Road Less Traveled.
Daddy, I'm scared.
Am I wrong or are you supposed to be in bed?
Daddy, there's a man in my room.
Sweetie, you just had a nightmare.
I was not. I saw him, Mommy.
It's my turn, I guess. I think I'm just gonna go have to see who this is who is bothering my little girl. And if he can read minds, then he's gonna be real mad when he gets to mine.
Ooh.
How appropriate.
This was episode 12 of season 2. This was directed by a young man named Wes Craven,
Oh, yeah.
who directed Nightmare on Elm Street, Scream, and a ton of other films. It was written by a young man named George R.R. Martin. No idea who that guy is.
Really?
Hopefully
What?
someday somebody will want to read something he's written. It stars Cliff DeYoung, who has 140 credits, mostly TV, and a few schlocky movies, but you definitely know him if you saw him. He's one of that guys.
Yeah.
And Margaret Clank, who's a TV actress, who also has a ton of credits, including 30 episodes of One Life to Live.
Sure. That's like 2 weeks of filming.
So I don't know if you guys, you're right, actually.
It's a short moment of her life. But yeah.
I don't know if you guys have watched much of the 80s incarnation of Twilight Zone.
I don't think I've seen any of it.
Oh,
I watched some.
actually have the entire DVD set right there.
I watched
Well.
some originally when they were originally broadcast, but not very many.
Well, they are all available right now on YouTube.
Oh,
So
wow.
you can just look up episode titles and they pop right up.
Nice.
This one was a little deeper than I was expecting, but I don't know why. It's the Twilight Zone.
Sure.
It opens up with a little girl bursting out of her bedroom door and coming downstairs and telling her parents that there's a man upstairs in her room.
Mm.
And her dad, Jeff, he walks her back up to the bedroom and looks around. And of course, they see that there's a pile of clothes. You know, that's the man that you thought was here. And so he leaves the light on and he reads her story until she falls asleep. And then he, starts sneaking out and he turns the lights off. And as soon as he turns the lights off, he's like in the jungles of Vietnam.
Oh my God.
And he's like, whoa, what's going on? And he kind of is reaching around and everything. He finds the light, turns the light switch on, and he's back in her room. He turns it off and he's back in her room. So he's just like, okay, he's very troubled by this. But, my initial thought is, oh, okay, Vietnam flashback, right? The next day, Jeff comes home and he's talking to his wife and he's embarrassed and guilty about a discussion he had at work. Someone had asked him what he did during the Vietnam War, and he said he had been in school, and he had to admit that he had graduated from a university up in Canada. So right after that, his daughter comes downstairs again, and her hands are filthy, and she's talking about a man upstairs in a room in a wheelchair. And so the mom goes up, and she actually sees the man and screams, and the husband comes up, and the guy's gone. So, as this is going on, I'm like, what is going on here? Because, I think he's having Vietnam flashbacks, but then it turns out that he didn't go to Vietnam. Yeah. So I was just like, oh, this is getting really interesting. And the kind of wacky things, I'm going to be wrapping this up pretty quickly, actually, because the wacky things about the 80s version of the Twilight Zone is every episode, they were an hour long, and they would have like 3 segments in it. So you'd get 3 short films, basically. And some of them were great, Some of them were so-so. Some of them were not very good. So you weren't getting, though, that 22-minute Twilight Zone or 45-minute Twilight Zone episode that was a full story in each episode. Oh, so he's come back. The daughter has seen, the man upstairs again. The wife has screamed. Jeff goes up, and he doesn't see anything. The guy's gone. So he's like, he's going to start a bath for the girl. And he starts the bath. The bathroom fills up with steam and everything. And all of a sudden, boom, he's back in Vietnam. Now he's in the jungle, in the swamp. And there's a couple other soldiers next to him. And they're asking him why he's acting so weird. Why is he freaking out? And he is freaking out because he has no memory of any of this stuff happening. And he's just in the moment. And he kind of thrashes about. And then all of a sudden, he's back in the bathroom. And his wife is like, what is going on with you? And so he kind of admits to her his guilt at being a draft dodger and going to Canada, and maybe this is all catching up with him and he's going crazy. There are a couple other scenes where the girl, we see her talking to somebody in her room. She does not seem afraid of this person. At first she was, now she seems like, she's totally cool with him. And at the end, Jeff ends up coming in and confronting the man in the wheelchair, and we finally see him in good light, and we see that it's Jeff in the wheelchair. Only he's looking pretty grizzled and old, and it turns out that he's actually a war vet version of him from an alternate reality who honored his draft.
Wow.
And he wanted to know what his life would have been like if he had not gone to war.
Wow.
And so Jeff then tells him, it is breaking down and telling him how guilty he feels about the things he did to get out of going to war. And Vietnam War Jeff is saying, well, it looks like everything was good for you in this life, and I'm glad that you did this. And they come to the realization is, wait a second, if I'm getting some of your bad memories, maybe I can give you some of my good memories. And so they touch each other, and they get kind of a transference of memories, good and bad. And then there's one part that I didn't quite understand. The Vietnam Jeff gets out of the wheelchair at one point, and I was like, oh, I'm not sure how come he was able to suddenly walk with all of this, but they both there's kind of a balance being made between the two of them having to deal with this, and then he disappears. I thought it was haunting, quite honestly. It was really solid, not what I was expecting at all. I mean, the best Twilight Zone episodes don't really explain why something is happening, because that'll get in the way of the moral of the story.
Right.
And so once you start thinking about it, he just wanted to see what his life would have been like if he hadn't gone to war. How did he accomplish that?
Right.
But you don't need that stuff. So I loved it. The best of the Twilight Zone 85. They call this series Twilight Zone 85, but it actually ran from 85 to 87. It had 3 years.
Wow.
And they are on YouTube, and you can do a search for people's favorite episodes, but I will give you the names of a couple of the episodes I thought were really great that I watched in research for this. One of them was called The Toys of Caliban, written by that George R.R. Martin guy.
Ooh.
One of them was The Once and Future King, which is an Elvis time travel story, which is awesome. Also written by George R.R. Martin.
Wow.
Kind of the Richard Matheson of the 80s version.
Right. Shadow Man is really good. That was directed by Joe Dante.
Ooh.
Nightcrawlers is based on a Robert McCammon story and directed by William Friedkin.
Oh, jeez.
And my very, very favorite is one called Wordplay. It's from the first season, second episode. It was directed by Wes Craven and really, really solid. Just a great episode. But I remembered it so well, like almost perfectly, that I thought, if I'm remembering this, then other people are too. So I was not going to pick that one. But that's what I chose for mine.
Nice.
Awesome. Okay. Well, I guess I'll go ahead and jump in next. So I went much more traditional Twilight Zone, just because I haven't seen that much. So I didn't want to start into a series that was already established when I didn't see much of the original that establishes it. I had a friend of mine gave me a list of like 12 of his favorite episodes.
Oh, nice.
So shout out to Micah for helping me whittle it down. And I went ahead and chose one of his called The Hunt.
Well, old man, what are you hollering about?
You're gonna suffocate in there like air one of these days. Won't you leave the door open?
Well, I gotta keep that dog out of the house somehow.
When I go in the house, Rip goes too.
Well,
That dog saved my life.
yeah, let the ornery thing come on in.
I'll have my supper now, old woman. Here, Rip.
I'll feed that dog after supper.
He ain't gonna be here after supper.
Now, this is a season 3, episode 19. So probably not sure how many people have checked this out. I don't know that it didn't pop up in a lot of the top 10 lists that I saw.
The name isn't ringing a bell for me.
Okay, cool. That's good. So it feels like one that could have just sort of passed people by. Directed by Harold Schuster, who has 53 credits, including Wings of the Morning, Return of Jack Slade, and this is his only Twilight Zone episode. Writer is Earl Hamner Jr., who actually wrote 8 episodes of Twilight Zone. He also wrote 8 episodes of Gentle Ben. He wrote Charlotte's Web, and he did 212 episodes of The Waltons. So he was around. I know. He had a huge list of credits.
Showrunner there.
And of course, created by Rod Serling, who I didn't realize also wrote for Night Gallery, Planet of the Apes. Did not know. So I'm excited. I want to learn more about this Sterling guy.
You're going to get a lot of hate mail.
for saying Planet of the Apes?
No, for Rod Serling.
No T. There's no T in his name.
Oh, Serling. I'm sorry. That was a typo. That's my fault. Thanks, guys. Oh my gosh. Well, okay.
We're off to a great start, though.
This is going very well. Starring Arthur Honeycutt, who was kind of a tall character actor. He was known for playing a lot of humorously wise rural roles. He was also nominated as Best Supporting Actor for the Oscars for a film called Big Sky. Jeanette Nolan has been in 202 things. She plays as Arthur's wife, The Simpsons, in fact. She actually played Lady Macbeth opposite Orson Welles in 1948 and was Ellie Mae in The Rescuers and Widow Tweed in Fox and the Hound.
Oh.
Yeah, so she plays like a lot of the like cute little lady roles. Anyway, and then Robert Folk, who's been in 277 things. He played the gatekeeper. He was an architect student who ended up in theater. He was in Rebel Without a Cause, Bonanza, Lassie, Rifleman, Father Knows Best, and last but not least, Dexter DuPont, who plays an angel, who is he played in only a couple of things. He only did 3 roles. Including Outlaws as a guy named Floyd Dalton and Empire. He worked as an actor before deciding that he wasn't making enough money. So he went into selling Cadillacs for 20 years and then became a real estate salesman. Currently, he lives in Spokane, Washington.
Wow.
Which is very exciting. So obviously these are so short. So I went ahead and wrote in the like opening narration.
Oh, nice.
So pretend it's Rod Serling. An old man and a hound dog named Rip off the evening's pleasure in quest of raccoon. Usually these evenings end with one tired old man, one battle-scarred hound dog, and one or more extremely dead raccoons. But as you may suspect, that will not be the case tonight. These hunters won't be coming home from the hill. They're headed for the backwoods of the Twilight Zone. So Hyder Simpson and his wife Rachel have been happily married for 50 years. They're super simple country folk. He loves his hound dog Rip more than he should. His wife is like, why is this dog always around? He's like, he saved my life. And they frequently go coon hunting. That's like his favorite thing of all time to do. So his wife is like, let's go to church. And he's like, no, I'm going to go hunting tonight. See you later. And she says, please don't go. I saw a bad omen. There was a blood moon. And he's like, you be so suspicious, woman. You stop that nonsense. I'm going to go. And he leaves. So, of course, on the hunt, they find a coon. They start chasing it down. Raccoon. I know, I hate saying that. But that's what they say in the show consistently. So please forgive any connotations that has. They find a raccoon. They chase it into a river. And the dog jumps in and is kind of struggling. And so, of course, he goes after his dog. They wake up the next morning in a field, just pleasantly asleep against a fence post. And he's like, wow, what a weird night. Gets up, goes back home, but Rachel can't see him. Nobody can see him. Nobody can hear him. And then his body is taken out in a wooden box. She's dressed in all black. She's in mourning. A priest is there. He's super dead. So he then is like, well, I guess I'm just going to walk outside for a while. I don't really know what to do. And he finds kind of a fence he's never seen before, and he follows it along, and he finds this man, and he goes, oh my gosh, are you St. Peter? And he's like in this kind of old country style, almost like a guard post, like a little wooden sort of stop that you might stop at before a gate opens up for somebody. So the guy's like, why, yes, friend, right beyond this gate is the Elysian fields and heaven. Why don't you go on in? And the dog starts to get kind of spooked and acting all squirrely. And the guy's like, okay, well, me and Rip will make our way through here. He's like, oh, no, sir. You cannot take the dog. He's like, what? Excuse me?
All dogs
go to heaven. He's like, sir, but I can't leave my dog behind. And he's like, no, there's a special dog heaven down the road. He'll be fine. He's like, I'm sorry, but, and I love this quote. Any place that's too highfalutin for Rip is too fancy for me. So much to this dismay of St. Peter and this guardsman, whatever, he leaves. He's like, screw you.
He's a low-falutin guy.
He is. He's low country, and he's proud of it. They carry down the road, and eventually they run across another man who's like a super country guy, like as opposed to the other guy was a little bit more, seemed like a little bit more city. This guy is definitely country, and he's like, hey, friend, I'm an angel. Why don't you make your way down the road here and go to heaven? We've been waiting for you. And he's like, but what about that guy down before yonder? He's like, oh, sir, no, that's hell. And he says, because he wouldn't let the dog in. He's like, of course you can have the dog here. In fact, we're about to have a big old raccoon hunt tonight, and then we're gonna go square dancing. So why don't you come on down and join us? And has this great line. You see, Mr. Simpson, a man, well, he'll walk right into hell with both eyes open, but even the devil can't fool a dog.
Oh.
Yeah. So it, of course, the dog and Mr. Simpson go on down the road, and closing narration, travelers of unknown regions would well be advised to take along the family dog. He could save you from entering the wrong gate. At least it happened that way once in a mountainous area off the Twilight Zone.
I love it.
Nice.
It's super sweet. It's super hard not to cry while watching this. It's just really moving and just so lovely. One of my favorite things about this is the set design is so good that when I saw it was all shot on a lot, I was like, you guys went through a lot of trouble to make the backwoods road look like a lot. I don't know who was in charge of plants, but damn, son, you did a great job. The only real gripe I had with it is it takes so long for him to realize he's dead. I'm like, oh my God, they're digging a hole for you and talking about you and you don't, and you're like, well, I guess your dog died. You must be really sad too. No, their dog did not die. You're making assumptions. A couple of very small pieces of trivia I found on it. I mean, there's really so little that I can bring up on these ones, but filmed at MGM in Culver City, California. It was referenced in Everybody Wants Some. You can see there's a Betamax tape in the background that has it scribbled on. It's based on the 1953 episode of Kate Smith Hour, The Hound of Heaven, written by Earl Hamner. So I don't know if somebody just stole something or what. Didn't go too much to detail on that. Dog's name is Rip, which stands for rest in peace, which I did not get while watching it. Rip is a blue tick coonhound.
I love it.
Nice.
Yeah.
Those are great dogs.
I like always makes me think of Where the Red Fern Grows.
Mm-hmm.
You read that one?
I read it as a kid. I remember the ending. I don't remember the rest.
I had it read to us in the 3rd grade. So it's a classroom full of kids all trying not to cry in front of anybody.
Oh, yes. We had a couple of those moments.
So, my episode is more known. It is one of the more recognized episodes. It's called The Obsolete Man.
You walk into this room at your own risk, because it leads to the future. Not a future that will be, but one that might be. This is not a new world. It is simply an extension of what began in the old one. It has patterned itself after every dictator who has ever planted the ripping imprint of a boot on the pages of history since the beginning of time. It has refinements, technological advances, and a more sophisticated approach to the destruction of human freedom. But like every one of the superstates that preceded it, it has one iron rule. Logic is an enemy and truth is a menace. Any state, any entity, any ideology that fails to recognize the worth, the dignity, the rights of man, that state is obsolete. A case to be filed under M for Mankind in the Twilight Zone.
And it's from season 2, episode 29, or episode 65 overall, depending on how you want to look at it.
Right.
The Rotten Tomatoes I found actually was for the whole season.
Right.
So 92 and 91 for the season 2.
Well, that's a big plus.
Down from the first season.
Oh.
But above the 3rd season.
I guess each season gets worse.
Directed by Elliot Silverstein, who directed Cat Ballou, The Car.
Oh, boy.
Lots of TV, including 4 Twilight Zone and 4 Tales in the Crypt episodes.
Oh, that's cool.
Nice.
Is there one you're expecting me to... You had to look like you're expecting me to say one. Like,
No, I just think it's funny that he also directed Cat Ballou.
Yeah. I know. It's like, oh, all right. Written by... This is a Rod Serling written one.
Oh.
One of his. Starring Burgess Meredith, who you probably know as Rocky's trainer, but he's been in 180 other films at least.
Oh, yes. But I only think of him as Rocky's trainer.
That's right. And
it's getting weird in here tonight, you guys.
We got to stretch this one out a little. Basically, it's 2 people. There's other cast members, but it's basically Burgess Meredith and Fritz Weaver, who has been in a crap ton of stuff as well. But Marathon Man, Creep Show, Twilight Zone, the movie. He made an appearance in that, but he's been in a lot of Twilight Zones. The basic storyline is it's a totalitarian society in the future, and the job of librarian, the job of librarian has been, the librarian has been declared an obsolete job. And in this society, if you have an obsolete job, you get killed.
Makes sense. I'm on board.
But, hey, they nicely investigate him for, I don't remember the amount of time, for a few months or a year to see if he's truly obsolete. But since he still insists on calling himself a librarian, they said, yes, you definitely are obsolete. The set for this, the trial set, is just fantastic, with this huge long board or long table with one guy who does sort of the introduction guy speaking at the other end of the table, and the chancellor, which is Fritz's character, is on this huge giant dais that's probably as tall as the table is long. And then in the background on each side, you see people standing in judgment. So he comes in, and Burgess Meredith comes in and has to defend himself to say why he's still worth being around, which he doesn't really do. He's just sort of, I know what's going to happen. This is what it is, and he explains why he doesn't think he's obsolete, but you can tell he's not actually fighting for any kind of stay. So one of the interesting parts, when you get sentenced to death, you get to decide how you're going to be killed and who's going to kill you. Decide the method of execution. So he tells him that he wants his method of execution to only be known to his executioner, and he wants to die midnight the next day. And he wants it televised.
Oh.
And the chancellor's like, great, we love having televised executions. It gets people to know what's going on.
Oh, God.
So I would recommend real quick, if you want to go take 22 extra minutes, go watch The Obsolete Man on Netflix. The entire original series is on Netflix right now. Yeah. Because I'm just going to talk about the episode.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's short, 22 minutes. Of course, when it comes time for him to get killed, he invites the chancellor to come and hang out in his room with him. And of course, the chancellor, being the good ego, insane guy that he is, says, of course I'll show up. I want to watch you squirm when you get near the end, when you beg for life and stuff, and it'll be televised and everybody will see it, and Meredith's characters basically get whatever. And the twist of this one is fairly early, or one of the main twists is fairly early. It's about halfway through the episode. The chancellor shows up and finds out that Meredith's choice of death is a bomb. Mm-hmm. So his room will be exploded. And he's locked the door behind the chancellor when he comes in.
Oh, shit.
So he's locked him inside the door with him. And the chancellor, being, the state guy that he is fairly sure he's going to be all right. So although you can tell he's shaken, he's not sure what's going on, he believes he's going to be just fine. They'll let him out. And there's great throwbacks lines to those people and they people, and they ask, who do you mean? And it's incredibly well written. And this was definitely one of Rod's message episodes, without a doubt. So the cameras are on, they're filming everything, and the chancellor has a great line because they feel their society's worked because Hitler and Stalin didn't go far enough.
Oh.
And now they are. All church people, all old people, people like him who are considered obsolete, are all executed. And they feel that this is making a great society. Getting rid of all of the undesirables. The rest of the episode, after he declares the bomb and stuff, is him going back and forth, the obsolete man and the chancellor going back and forth, talking about this concept and the idea of dying with dignity and dying for no reason. There's a lot of interesting stuff in this film. It's very much a 1984 idea played out really well. The amount of stuff they pack into 22 minutes is really impressive. And the chancellor's room is packed to the gills with books. And largely, they're not really supposed to have books. Fahrenheit 451 coming in here a little bit. At the last minute, although Rod certainly wasn't necessarily a religious man himself, he knew the crowd he was writing for. So Burgess Meredith is reading the Bible through this, which is an illegal book to have, but he says, well, I don't care. So he pulls it out and starts reading in front of the camera. And at the very last moment, before the bomb goes off, the chancellor yells, "For the love of God, let me out." And Burgess is fine. For the love of God, I will let you out. It's like, fuck, this is so well written. The chancellor then finds out he has been deemed obsolete. Because he panicked so badly under the face of execution. So the end narration is the chancellor, the late chancellor, was only partly correct. He was obsolete, but so is the state. The entity he worshipped, any state, any entity, any ideology which fails to recognize the worth, the dignity, the rights of man, that state is obsolete. A case to be filed under M for mankind. In the Twilight Zone.
Oh.
I love it.
Fucking love this episode. I watched it a few times. Yes, it is.
Wow.
The guy's talent, his writing talent, was off the charts because he has originally I'm going, well, I want to watch a Richard Matheson episode because he's one of my favorite writers. Probably really good. But I looked those up and going, well, I've seen all of these.
Right, and so is everybody.
Yes. So I was like, oh, let's check out this one. And I didn't realize it was Rod's until I was looking it up later. But the writing is so crisp and it's so good. And of course, both the actors nail it. Some of the opening narration is actually used in a song by a band called Run the Jewels on their 2016 album Thieves. But 2016 album, pulling from that to put in, shows that this kind of stuff he's writing about is still relevant, unfortunately, and it's still provocative and interesting to look at, and it is considered one of the best Twilight Zone episodes by a lot of. I found out later, looking it up, going, oh, well, this is in the top 10s of a lot of people's lists of best Twilight Zones.
Yeah, that's a solid one. Rod realized that, he had so many things he wanted to say that he was never going to be able to see on TV, but if you hide it under the guise of science fiction, then you can talk about all sorts of things. Star Trek did the same thing.
Yeah,
absolutely.
What was that one episode with the black and white faced people?
Oh, sure.
But the one I mean, yeah. I was like, what are you trying to say here?
Who were fighting with the white and black faced people.
Right, exactly. But so yeah, these are. This goes back to kind of we've talked about before, man. Don't ignore the black and white, the older stuff. Incredibly well written, and like I said, the first 5 seasons are all on Netflix right now. They look great.
Yeah,
they did a good job making sure they were well presented and crisp writing.
It's weird because it feels like common sense morality that currently is buried. So I'm like, yeah, of course everyone is, if we're going to just be good human beings to each other, this all makes sense, and don't do the stupid, obvious, horrible things. Why are we doing that? Why are we doing that right now? Doesn't make any sense. If they got it in the 60s, in a sci-fi show.
Well, all right. Well, that was fun. Was that fun? That was a little different than what we normally do.
It's different, but good writing, good acting is no matter what the length.
Yeah, and always a few surprises. There was one episode that I was watching in my huge list of 4 considerations, and I decided not to go with it because it has some uncomfortable yellow face going down. But it had Leonard Nimoy as just a actor in the background who they're at war and he's just hanging out with his buddies in the back and he just says a line or two. I'm like, that's Leonard Nimoy. He's just chilling back there. Oh.
Well, yeah, and of course Shatner was in some of those famous episodes.
I have seen the Shatner episodes as a Star Trek fan, of course.
Yep.
Well, cool, guys. I think that means that it's your choice, Eric.
Yes, it is. And going along with the themes of, short stuff, still pretty damn good. We're going to talk, I think we should talk about short films.
Ooh.
Short films.
Now, this can be, I would say it doesn't have to be one. Let's go with, if you find one that's gives you enough to talk about, great. But feel free to grab 2 or 3 or whatever it fits. I could talk about one of my favorite short films right now that I showed at MIF. Claymation one. Zombie digging himself out of the grave, going roar. The grave falls on top of his head and it's done.
Oh my God, that's so good.
It was so funny. 35 seconds short. That might be a little short to talk about.
Yeah.
Right. But, and so what are the rules for this?
I would say the most important thing is we need to find stuff that people can watch because there is, as you know, quite literally thousands of short films made every year. Yeah. A lot of them, I would try to go for Vimeo or Amazon has a surprising number of really high quality shorts, but Vimeo and YouTube are definitely going to be great sources for, well, I've got this short. Where can I find it? It's probably going to be on one of those.
I love it.
Awesome. Okay. That should be a fun challenge.
Yeah, that sounds like a blast. I think that's a great idea. All right. So that's what we're doing next week. Until then, thanks everybody for all of the nice comments and the reviews and the liking and sharing. We love that about you. And
yes. Give me a 5-star movie, man. Go grab pop onto whatever you use. Put on 5 stars. Put on, Eric, you should watch. You thought Lou and Larry Cohen's second Alive was bad. Wait till you see this film.
Right.
Torture him.
That's right.
Yeah, plus we have a number of little songs that can do as an intro for the 5-star challenge that we're dying to get using. So I don't know if I told you about that.
I don't think I know about this.
Yeah.
This is exciting.
It's very exciting, but you're all going to have to wait until we get that 5-star.
Somebody's got to do that.
So, okay, that's what we're doing next week. We will be back, and we're talking short films, and we will see you then.
See ya.
Bye.
Our show is recorded somewhere high above Naval Station Everett at the nexus of all realities and is engineered and produced by Eric Margaret. Our theme music is Strange Aeons Part 1 by the band Nightshade and is used with permission. Find Strange Aeons Radio on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, and wherever fine podcasts